Hello there. Throughout this history course, we've had the opportunity to travel back in time to Canada's foundational years and reflect on how far we've come as a nation. We covered a great number of topics, learning more of the First Peoples, newcomers, the relations between France and Britain, the redefinition of British North American rule, the fur trade, rebellions, reforms, responsible government, schools, prisons, and asylums. We had a fantastic guest speaker, a presentation at the MAG, a number of different readings, all of which provided greater insight into Canada's history prior to Confederation. This all leads to some questions, such as what did all of these resources and all of this information actually teach us about the state of Canada leading into Confederation? As Canada pushes into its future as a nation in the year 1867, what kind of society do we have? How can we use what we have learned to shape our understanding of what will come? So in the next 9 minutes or so, I'm going to sit here and I plan to reflect on everything we have learned and hopefully answer these questions. So, as we begin, let us raise a glass. Sorry, hold on, just a minute. Forgot this.
I wonder which topic I'll start with. I did find the First Peoples section interesting, and it seems only fitting to start a reflection of Canadian history with Indigenous Canadians. What would I talk about? I could start by addressing the fact that this group was the original inhabitant of Canada, and how over time the British gained more and more control. I could maybe expand on some points from Corky's presentation, though she already did a fantastic job of educating the class. Maybe I'll just start by covering some of the mistreatment of Indigenous peoples, such as slavery and land deals. This all would be beneficial, as knowing more of the relations and tensions prior to Confederation truly is crucial to understanding the state of this relationship in 1867. Injustices were not only isolated moments in the past, they fueled post-Confederate events such as the implementation of residential schools, the Indian Act, and reserves. Indigenous people were not even invited to the Confederation conferences in Quebec or Charlottetown, though Confederation did affect them with government taking control of Indigenous affairs. In learning more about Indigenous Canadians, we were given a more complete context of how they fit into Confederate society and why there are lasting effects of pre-Confederate relations to this day. Yeah, that'd probably be a pretty good start.
Sorry about the delay there. Where was I in here? Oh yeah, okay. So let's raise a glass to... Sorry, just another minute. I'll just be right back.
Okay, I have the liquid now. Actually, now that I think some more, I could also open on Indigenous people and the fur trade. I mean, when I think of learning Canadian history in middle school, I think fur trade. And popsicle stick forts. I really like Gerald Enz's article, Disposition or Adaptation, so I'd certainly include this in my reflection. I remember he debated the notion that Métis people were entirely expelled and argued that the immigration was an economic choice. I remember this source specifically due to the many statistics he used to argue. It really gave me a better idea of this aspect of Canadian history. I mean, for example, Enns stated while farming acres did increase, so too did population. There was actually a percentage decrease, which was more telling. He also, I think, found a 0.67 positive correlation between buffalo prices and Métis immigration. and noted an increase in fur sales into St. Paul from 1,400 to 40,000 to 182,000 to 400,000. I think he also found a 1862 newspaper article highlighting this prosperity, and that in 1845 it was the only year in a 5-year span with sufficient crop for the colony. Why don't I remember any of these dates or trivia? I guess I could also mention the source The Last Buffalo Hunter by Norbert Welsh. It really gave great insight on trade prices of the time, how buffalo were hunted strategically, how alcohol was traded separately, and the traditions of the trade. I thought both sources effectively taught more of the lives of the Métis people. I mean, the Métis are a part of Canadian society at the time of Confederation, so this would be a good way to begin to answer the questions. The fur trade also was very crucial to the development of Canada before Confederation, and this topic certainly taught more about the effect pathway that led to the expansion and prosperity of Canadian society. I should go quickly while this is still fresh in my mind. Actually, I could also start with redefining British North America. I mean, my paper fell under this category, so this would definitely be my jam. I spent a lot of time researching the War of 1812 and the motivations behind black soldiers' alliances, so I may as well expand more here. I could provide some more context of the war, the dispute stemming from the Napoleonic War, trade blockages, and the desire for more land, and then I could introduce some interesting stories like black families canoeing to join the British side in Chesapeake Bay, the entirely black naval force and its victories, or Andrew Jackson's speech in front of 500 black soldiers. Addressing the War of 1812 in general would be important, as fear of American expansion was a factor in Confederation, and this fear certainly is not isolated from the memory of the War of 1812. I would also mention the article we read in this section by Carolyn Podruchny, I think, Making the Voyager World. This source outlined the culture, traditions, and relationships of voyagers, and gave insight into one part of Canadian culture. In essence, this topic both provides important cultural color to the conversation of Confederation, and addresses how society was being redefined before it was redefined further. Okay, now time to actually begin. I guess I could start with rebellions, reforms, and responsible government. It is later on in the course than the other topics, though it might be beneficial to start closer to Confederation, work back, and provide insight this way. Also, rebellions are a really sexy topic that'll start my presentation off with a bang. After my introduction, I'd probably introduce the Diary of Jane Ellis. Not only was it a very informative primary source that provided personal context to the rebellions, it reads like a horror story. Overall, this would be a good theme to cover in the quest to answer the posed questions, as in order to outline Canada coming together, one needs to address times it fell apart as well. The rebellions especially give greater context to the previous divides in Canada, and show that while there was some new stability, New Canada was not without disagreement. There was a great deal of issues laying dormant that were part of this new society. I have a couple ideas. I should probably finish up in here and get started on that presentation now. Sorry about all those delays, but we'll just get right into it now that we have 1 minute. Okay, so we'll just scrap that and get right into the summary conclusion. I guess in 1867, Quebec, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia joined. More joined in the coming years, and by 1949, every province was united. The first Prime Minister was John Macdonald, as shown by past rebellions and Indigenous relations. Not all smooth in this new society, but progress was being made. There would be many missteps to come, along with many triumphs. We had a collection of histories from pre-Confederation times, the Voyagers, the Fur Trade, the War of 1812. These pre-Confederate historical events all give greater context of where we've been as a nation, and they each directly affected the new society that was forming. We were a diverse collection of people, Métis, Indigenous, French, and British. There was multiple centuries of change, ups, downs, fights, unity, all prior to Confederation, and from this, a stage was set for a new society. So, I think in conclusion, we can finally cheers to that, and cheers to Confederation. So, cheers.